Thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Plugins are one of the most important tools for producers, and today I'm showing you my top 10 plugins for beat making and music production of 2021. Really quickly before we get started, this will be my last video of the year before I take a little holiday break, but I didn't want to leave without saying that I truly appreciate every single one of you who tunes into my channel. It really does mean a lot, and it could not be possible without you. Now, I want to keep making content that you guys enjoy, so if you could, before you leave today, do me a huge favor and leave a comment down below telling me what kind of videos you want me to make in 2022. That would be greatly appreciated. But okay, jumping back into the video, to make this fair, out of the 10 plugins that I'll be mentioning today, 5 will be virtual instruments, meaning that you can actually make sounds with these, and the other 5 will be mixing or effect plugins. That way you guys get a good balance of both. Okay, so let's kick things off with some virtual instruments, and the first one on the list is Serum by X4 Records. Serum has been such a power tool for me this past year, and for multiple reasons. Not only do I not find the interface completely hideous, but in my opinion, it is one of the easiest synths to learn. Now listen, I get it. Most of us, when we buy a synth or a VST, we usually just use the presets and keep it moving, but the moment you learn how to do some sound design, the entire game changes. I'm still learning myself, but I found that Serum isn't overly complicated and can be a really good starting point to understand sound design. Not only that, but it does come with some great default presets to get you going, and people are always creating third-party patches and presets for it, so buying more to expand your arsenal is always an option if you don't want to create them yourself. The only caveat that I have with this VST, and it's a big one, is that it is super CPU hungry, so what I recommend is either one, of course, getting a powerful enough computer, or simply freezing or bouncing your tracks to audio once you're finished with them to free up some CPU. Moving on down, we have Anna 2 by Sonic Academy. This one is fairly new to me, but man is it good. Admittedly, I have not yet fully dived into the synth, but much like with Serum, there are a bunch of third-party packs out there that you can always buy to expand your arsenal. The cool thing about this synth is that it actually comes included in the Slate All Access Pass if you don't want to buy it outright. Third on the VST list is the V Collection by Arturia. Now, this should be no surprise if you've been following the channel for a while. I use these synths literally all the time. Now, technically, this is kind of cheating because the V Collection isn't just one synth, but a collection, as the name suggests, but they're all great. What makes the V Collection special is that the synths are basically a software emulation of some really classic hardware keyboards like the Prophet 5, the Juno 6, and the Jupiter 8. The actual hardware pieces are expensive, so if you do want that classic sound but don't want to spend an arm and a leg on it, this is the best way to go. Next up, we have one of my favorite bass plugins of all time, MODO Bass by IK Multimedia. Now, I know there are other great options out there like Trillion by Spectrasonics, but I haven't used that one, so I can't tell you. But I have used MODO Bass a lot, and it sounds really great. Usually, if I'm not plugging in my actual bass guitar, then this is what I'm using. Inside the VST, you get a plethora of bass models, but what I really love is how granular you can get with the parameter customization. Not only can you choose what bass you want to use, but you can also mess around with the play style, the strings, the electronics, the amp and effects, and even where you want the strings to be plugged and where you want the pickups to be placed. Last but not least on the VST category is my electric guitar. Now, a guitar is actually the opposite of a virtual instrument because it's very much analog, but we do need some external gear to make it sound good, and that's where some actual VSTs can come into play. So for an electric guitar to sound its best, we do need an amp and then some effect pedals, but if you're like me in a smaller room and you don't have the space for all of that, then the next best thing to do is to try some plugins, and 2 of my favorite for guitar so far are the Archetype Cory Wong by Neural DSP, and then the Guitar Rig 6 by Native Instruments. The Cory Wong plugin is a nice way to get some really polished, clean guitar tones, and the plugin is actually an entire suite, so you can mess around with some wah effects, preamp effects, the amp in the cabinet, some EQ settings, and then of course even some post-amp effects as well. Guitar Rig, on the other hand, goes deeper because you get a lot more tones than just clean, and with it you can practically sculpt any tone by choosing some of their amazing presets or by building one yourself using their different components. Hey there, before we continue with these plugins, I wanted to take a minute and thank the sponsor for this video, DistroKid. DistroKid is a digital distributor, and with plans starting at $20 a year for unlimited uploads, it is by far the easiest and most affordable way to release your music to all streaming platforms. Not only that, but they also have a ton of additional features that come included with your subscription, like the ability to split revenue and recoup costs from collaborators, get a YouTube official artist channel, send credits to stores, send sync lyrics to places like Instagram and Apple Music, and so much more. Promoting your music is also super easy. DistroKid has a variety of different tools tools that help you create mini videos, social media promo cards, and even landing pages to share your music and grow your following. As if that wasn't enough, DistroKid also allows you to place your songs on their multiple Spotify playlists and even privately pitch your music to record labels. If you're looking to release your own music, then click the first link in the description to get 7% off your first year. Moving on to mixing plugins, the first one on the list is Pro Q3 by FabFilter. So I've heard a few people say, why would you pay extra for an EQ if your DAW already comes with one? And then more than that, why would you pay that much for an EQ? I get it, it sounds nuts at first, but the Pro Q3 is more than just a regular EQ. There are a bunch of things that you can do with it, but some of my favorite include the ability to solo out a frequency. So instead of raising that point to find any problematic frequencies, all you have to do is create a point on the graph and then press this little headphone button to solo out that frequency. The analyzer is also another really cool feature that basically lets you overlay an instance of another Pro Q3, so that way you can kind of see two signals at once and EQ them better. And finally, we have the keyboard mode, which lets you see the note of a specific frequency. Again, there's a bunch more that this EQ can do, but these were just some small examples of some of my favorites and why I think this is completely worth it. Next up, we have a new addition to my toolbox, and that is the All Access Pass by Slate Digital. This one again is kind of cheating because it's a bunch of tools in one collection, but again, they're all fantastic. Slate Digital themselves make some really fantastic plugins like the Virtual Mix Track, where you can use emulations of some classic pieces of gear like the Tube Tech, the LA2A, and more, and the Verb Suite, which I believe to be one of the most comprehensive software reverb modules. But to make the deal even sweeter, they also partner up with other companies to include some of their plugins in the bundle. For example, as mentioned earlier, in the bundle, you also get Anna 2, the VST included, and the entire Kilohertz plugin collection, which if you're not familiar with, then you definitely should. My only gripe with this entire bundle is that you cannot own it outright. It is strictly subscription, but despite that, I still think it's worth the money. Moving on, we have Ozone 9 and Ozone 9 Advanced. I've spoken about this plugin in the past, but it's basically a mastering suite with some really cool artificial intelligence capabilities. I basically use this plugin whenever I decide not to use an actual mastering engineer and I just need something decent done quickly. Personally, I opt for the advanced version because if you notice, this plugin is a bunch of modules combined into one suite, and with the advanced version, you get to use each of these modules independently. Next up, we have a really simple plugin called Kickstart by Nicky Romero and the people over at Cable Guys. Now, this plugin is probably one that you can do without because it's not that hard to replicate in your DAW, but once you have it, you start to realize how much easier it is to use it rather than to do the actual process yourself. Basically, this plugin creates that pumping or ducking effect we hear a lot in EDM music, and all it's doing is simply ducking out a signal based on a predetermined note value. To do this in your DAW, all you have to do is create a sidechain by using a compressor and then attaching it to whatever signal you want it to affect, but this plugin effectively removes all of that and lets you have that effect without any of the back-end work. Alright, last but not least, we have Trackspacer by Waves Factory. Now, if I'm being quite honest, I'm still not quite sure what's happening internally with this plugin, but if I had to guess, I would say it's some sort of dynamic EQ or maybe a multi-band sidechain compressor, but basically, you add this to a track and then send another signal to it using your DAW's sidechain feature, and the plugin will detect that incoming signal and carve out those frequencies for the sound you placed it on. Again, I cannot confirm what it's doing, but what I do know is that it's magic. As you can probably tell, I use this all the time with kicks and 808s to make sure they blend well, of course, but I also use it pretty much on any two sounds that might have clashing frequencies. This one's also not too expensive, so definitely pick it up. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Huge thank you once again to DistroKid for sponsoring this video. I'll be leaving that link down below so you can get 7% off your first year. All of the plugins mentioned today will also be listed down below in the description for your convenience, and they are going to be affiliate links, meaning that if you click on them and purchase through them, I get a small commission at no additional cost to you, and this just helps keep the channel running, so thank you. Finally, don't forget to drop me a comment letting me know what kind of videos you want to see next year, but as always, like this video if you like to subscribe if you're not already, but I'll see you on the next one.